Good morning, Magsaland. Yes, I am Matt Hurley, and I'm the crazy general manager of this fine institution, McMullen Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Today, we have a fantastic opportunity, as Ashley has indicated, to learn irrigation scheduling and maintenance from a very esteemed speaker, Dr. Khaled Bali, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. But before we go there, let me introduce just what it is we're watching today. It is the Grower Irrigation Academy. It's the inaugural presentation of what will be several years of presentations of content associated with irrigation. We came up with that hot name there, and now you can actually be an academician by hooking into the Irrigation Academy now and into the future. This is a presentation of a partnership between McMullen and Fresno State, specifically the Center for Irrigation Technology, and it will be an ongoing educational process that will include webinars and field days. So glad to have you all here. Let me introduce our team today. We have from the Center for Irrigation Technology, Charles Hillier. He is the director of the Center for Irrigation Technology. We also have Sean Ashcan, who is the senior research leader in Fresno Center for Irrigation Technology. We have Crystal Tufengshen, who is the deputy general manager for McMullen. And of course, our dazzling blue chair communications outreach human, Ashley Goldsmith, who does a fantastic job. And of course, we have our speaker today, Dr. Khaled Bali. And with that, I think I will hand it over to Sean, and he will give some further indications of what we're going to do today. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Matt. In the next 2 years, excuse me, we are going to host 3 webinars, 3 workshops, and 3 field days. Workshops and webinars cover several topics such as soil water, crop water requirements, irrigation scheduling, deficit irrigation, and system maintenance. And we invite experts to share their knowledge with the MAXA growers. The field days will be carried out on the local farms and include practical training to improve irrigation system efficiency and maintenance. Additionally, we will produce 7 educational videos covering essential topics such as understanding and measuring soil water for irrigation scheduling, implementing deficit irrigation to maximize water use efficiency with limited water supplies, scheduling irrigation using different methods, maintaining irrigation systems, managing nutrients, organizing and utilizing farm irrigation data. We will also produce a detailed soil map and a database. This tool will help growers easily access soil information on their farm and help with irrigation and soil water management. All these activities and products will be available on the Academy website. The Academy will also offer local resources for additional technical support. The primary mission of the Academy is to offer technical support to growers within the MAXA service area to enhance their access to essential technical knowledge and resources. Finally, I would like to acknowledge that the seed money for the Academy is provided by the Water Efficiency Technical Assistance Program, supported by the California Department of Food and Agriculture. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our premier speaker today. Khaled Bali is the Irrigation Water Management Specialist at the University of California at the Kearney Ag Research Center in Parlier, California. Khaled was a farm advisor for many years, as well as a Rhodes Scholar. He has a wealth of knowledge in irrigation management, and we're really thrilled that he's here today to share that knowledge with us. So, Khaled, take it away.
Thank you so much, Charles. Thank you, Ashley. I want to thank Ashley, the Center of Irrigation Technology, Fresno State, and the McMullen GSA for inviting me to share my presentation with you today. And I'm going to share my screen. And we will be talking about irrigation scheduling, and we will be touching a little bit on irrigation maintenance, but I will provide you with resources that we have that will help you with the maintenance of your irrigation system. As you know, we're dealing with limited water supplies, not in just this area. We're dealing with limited water supplies all over the state of California. And as you know, we have sometimes crazy weather. Like last year, we got so much rain, so much precipitation, but that is not normal. So for example, last year we got about 700 inches of snow, and that snow translates to runoff that we use for irrigation and for replenishing the groundwater resources that we have in the Central Valley. In wet years, we would like to capture that water and use it for groundwater recharge. So when we have groundwater recharge, we'll be able to replenish the groundwater that is used for irrigation, especially during wet years. As you know, the Central Valley, we have lots of crops in California, and the Central Valley is the most productive region in the US and actually in the world. When it comes to water resources in California, most of the water comes from the northern part of the state, but most of the demand is in the Central Valley and in Southern California. Looking at the future, we all familiar with the climate change and the impact of climate change on water resources. So this is just a graph to give you an idea about what we will be looking in the year 2050. In about 25 years from now, we're expecting additional decline in the amount of water available for irrigation and for other uses in California. So with this, we want to make sure that we're efficient when it comes to irrigation. When it comes to making irrigation decisions, there are several things that we can do to make sure that we're doing a good job with irrigation management. There are several ways to make irrigation decisions. The easiest and the simplest and the free method is using the water budgeting. Basically looking at reference evapotranspiration, which relates to the weather conditions, and a crop coefficient for the crop that we have, whether it's alfalfa, almond, pistachio, or any other crop. Now we can go to additional level of accuracy by looking at soil moisture. The soil moisture will give us a feedback whether our crop is stressed and when to schedule irrigation events. So when we look at soil moisture measurements, mostly we're looking at sensors, and that's additional cost. Now we can go to another step, which is a lot more complicated, which is related, communicating with the plant and asking the plant if the plant is stressed or not. And for example, we could look at the plant temperature as an indicator if we need to irrigate. We could look at stem water potential or other methods. The best thing to do is to have a combination of above 3, but at least we can start with a simple one, which is based on ET and reference evapotranspiration. Looking at the last 20 years and advances in technology, we have lots of tools that is available to help us. But, sometimes we get too much information and we get confused. So we'll try to keep it simple with this presentation, but then we're going to get to more how we deal with big data. Like, everybody hears about artificial intelligence and how we can use it in so many different forms in our life. We could use it for irrigation scheduling and making irrigation decisions. And we're going to go and take this big data, and I'll give you an example about the software that we could use for making irrigation decisions. That's called crop management. So whenever you have a farm, you have to know what kind of soil that you're dealing with. Soil type is important and related to the irrigation decisions that we make. So for example, if we have a lighter soil, the water holding capacity is not that great, and we want to start thinking about having more irrigation events. So we'll have higher frequency. So instead of irrigating once a week, maybe we take that time for irrigation and split it over 4 or 5 times a week, so we don't lose that water below the root zone. We have to consider irrigation water quality because it's going to have an impact on the irrigation system. So if we have carbonate or bicarbonate in the irrigation water, that is going to affect my irrigation system if I'm dealing with a drip system. It may not have a much impact if I'm dealing with a flood system or sprinkler system, but if I'm dealing with micro sprinkler or drip irrigation system, it's going to have an impact. We want to know, what are the crop water demands? And this is where we can use reference evapotranspiration and crop coefficient and some of the technologies that I will be talking about today. So soil texture is very important, which is basically soil texture. It means, how much sand, silty clay that you have in your soil. And, there are, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the soil maps. So this is an example of soil map, just tells me, okay, this soil is soil 114. It's a loamy soil. So what does it mean? The loamy soil will have maybe good water holding capacity. It's very important to consider the water holding capacity when we make irrigation decisions. Also, the soil map will give me an idea. Do I have one soil type in my field or 2 or 3? If I have 2 soil types, maybe I have to make irrigation decisions for each soil type. And this is where we can get into zones. So maybe instead of having 1 zone for my entire farm, I could have 2 zones so I can accommodate the changes in related to soil texture. We also have to consider the soil type when it comes to the root depth. If we have drip irrigation, most likely our root zone is relatively shallow. If we have flood irrigation, we wet the entire soil profile and maybe my root zone will be a little bit bigger even for the same crop. We also consider the soil when we design a new irrigation system. I know there are a lot of incentives for growers to move into more efficient systems. So whenever you want to have a new system, please make sure that you consider the soil type in your decision when it comes to the new soil. We also have to consider the soil type when it comes to leaching, especially if we're using groundwater that has high salinity. We have to leach to maintain the soil health and the crop health. This is the traditional soil triangle, which will give you an idea about what kind of soil that you have. So if I have a silty clay soil, most likely I have a high water holding capacity, but then I will have lower infiltration rate. And the lower infiltration rate, I have to consider this when I'm designing a new irrigation system. Loamy soil will be the ideal soil where you'll have a medium water holding capacity and a medium infiltration rate. When it comes to sandy soil, they're great for groundwater recharge, but very challenging when it comes to managing irrigation because you have to do very frequent irrigation events so you can keep that water in the root zone. There are lots of resources available where you can go and find out what type of soil that you have. The one that I use, and I think the easiest, is the Web Soil Survey. You can later on click on this link and you'll be able to go there and you'll be able to zoom into your farm and get a map like this one with actually a lot more detail with text telling you what 114 means, what 124 means, and so on. So the next thing that we have to know about irrigation scheduling is how much water we need to apply. A simple way is to look at how much water is used by grass in our area. Unstressed cool season grass will have crop water requirements that what we call reference evapotranspiration. Then we take that cool season grass as a reference for the crop that we have, and then we use a crop coefficient. So if I have, like, let's say, pistachio, my crop coefficient will vary during the growing season. Could be anywhere from 30% to 110 or 120% of the amount of water used by the grass. We also have to consider irrigation efficiency. And here you can see the irrigation efficiencies of different irrigation systems, from gravity all the way to the drip and the sprinkler irrigation. So I want to make sure that I have an efficient irrigation system. Typically, if you start with a brand new, drip irrigation system, your efficiency will be in the neighborhood of 90 to 95%, but you want to check that efficiency at least once a year. This is just to give you an idea about how we get reference evapotranspiration. This is a typical CIMMYS station, which stands for California Irrigation Management Information System. And we use that CIMMYS station to calculate the reference evapotranspiration for our area. And then for the crop of interest, we have a crop coefficient, and that will give us our crop water use, which is the ETC. Now, right now, it's very easy to get an update on a weekly basis for reference evapotranspiration in your area. You can Google CIMMYS and actually click on the map where you have your farm, and you can add the location, or you can use a street address, and they will be able to send you, weekly updates on Monday about, how much ETO you had during last week. Or if you want, you can create an account and access that information anytime. Now we have lots of new technologies. One of them, Thule technologies, that's basically gives me how much my crop is using. There are arable mark and other technologies right now in the marketplace. Just want to give you an idea how we determine the crop coefficient. As I mentioned earlier, ETO is relatively easy to get from CIMMYS. So the way we determine crop coefficient is we measure the actual amount of water used by the crop. In this example, sunflower, I have this instrument called edicovariance. That instrument will tell me exactly how much that crop used. So that's basically the ETC, or the actual crop water use of sunflower. I just simply divide it by the ETO that I get from CIMMYS, and I get the crop coefficient. There are other technologies like surface renewal, simpler system, and those are typically for researchers. You'll see here in the back a small instrument. That's the Thule. That's a commercial version of the surface renewal system. And then we can determine a crop coefficient, which will look something like this. So if you have almond or pistachio, your crop coefficient will start early, like, April, March or April will start small. And it will get to about maybe 95, 100, 110% of the reference evapotranspiration, depending on, the size of the trees that you have and everything. So this is a commercial version of surface renewal. This is something that I have a whole bunch of these stations all over the state, and they're relatively accurate and, give me a good number. So I don't have to worry about, doing the calculation. I can use the data from this system to make irrigation decisions. As I mentioned, it's a good idea to have soil moisture sensors. The soil moisture sensors will give me additional layer of safety and will tell me what's going on in my root zone. So this is a picture from a vineyard in Napa area where, we're looking at the soil moisture conditions in the root zone. So for example, if my root zone is 4 feet, 4 feet, so I look at the soil moisture in the first foot, second foot, third foot, and fourth foot. Now, keep in mind, if you have a drip irrigation system, most likely, most of the uptake, most of the activities are going to be in the top 2 feet of your soil profile. It's good to know what's going on below the top 2 feet to get you an idea whether you're doing a good job. So for example, you know, this is a watermark sensor, relatively easy, not expensive, you know. So the 12-inch sensor will give me, you know, 33 centibar, which is a good moisture level. I go to the 2nd foot, the moisture level is relatively good. I go to the 3rd foot, you know, it's getting drier. 4th foot is getting a little bit drier. This is a good indication that I'm doing a good job. Imagine if I have a wet soil profile at the 3 feet and the 4 feet. That will give me an idea that, well, I'm over irrigating, and the moisture or the water that I'm applying is going below my active root zone. Another easy way to come up with you know, actual evapotranspiration for your crop of interest is to sign up for the weekly ET report that you can get from the May Columber farm advisor in the Fresno Extension Office. So this is, if you sign up for this service, May will send you this information on a weekly basis on Friday. So I'm going to use the information that I got from May for last week. So this is basically from May 3rd to May 9th, so an entire week. And my crop of interest here, like let's say we're going to go for almond. So basically, the report tells me, well, I lost about 1.2 inches of water for this crop last week. And the estimated crop water use next week would be 1.46 inches. So now keep in mind, this is how much last week, how much water I lost last week, 1.2 inches. Now I need, if I'm doing a good job, I need to apply 1.2 inches. Now, if my irrigation system is 100% efficient, I will just apply 1.2. The fact is, no irrigation system is 100% efficient. So I need to know what's my irrigation system efficiency. And like, let's say if it is 85%, I need to apply additional water to account for that, you know, not perfect efficiency. So it means here, you know, I need to apply 1.4 inches to replenish what I lost last week. There is also another way, you know, sometimes growers don't like to work with inches. They want to say, well, tell me how many gallons I need to apply for each tree. We could use the same information, you know, 85% efficiency. And, you know, I just need to apply 330 gallons for each tree. This is given the fact that I have 115 trees per acre. Now I want to take this information and we want to do very simple calculation. You remember from previous slide, we got 1.2 inches of ET lost last week. My distribution uniformity or irrigation efficiency is 85%. I take the 1.2, divide by 0.85, and this is how much water I need to apply. I need to apply 1.4 inches to replace what's lost last week. Keep in mind, if I had rain, I need to take that into consideration. Sometimes we have, you know, if you remember a few years back, we had lots of rain in May. So if I have a ½ inch of rain, I need to consider the ½ inch in this 1.4 and so on. But since I had no rain last week, we need to apply the entire 1.4 inches. Now, you know, when you get an irrigation system, you want to know what's your application rate. And there are several ways to know the application rate. Could be from the system design whenever you got the irrigation system. If not, we can help you out to come up with the application rate. In this case, for this field, my application rate is about 1/10 of an inch per hour. So I take the 1.4 inches and divide them by about 1/10 of an inch. And this will give me how many hours I need to run the irrigation system. So in this situation, I need to run the irrigation system for 16 hours this week to replenish what I lost last week. I don't want to apply the entire amount in 16 hours. If I have a medium type soil or a loamy soil, I may split it into 3 irrigation events. If I have a sandy soil, I want to split it into maybe 6 or 7 irrigation events. If I have an automated system, I may want to even have, like, very frequent irrigation events, maybe twice a day, 1 hour a day for the entire week. Now we're going to go with the other method, is just to look at how many gallons is used by each tree. So in this case, 330 gallons. And I know I have 115 trees per acre, and I just multiply it by the area that I'm irrigating. And in this example, 20 acres. So I can calculate how many gallons I need to apply. And in this example, like, let's say, to keep it simple, 760,000 gallons. It is essential that you have a flow meter. If you don't have a flow meter, you don't know what's going on. It's just like driving, your car, and you don't know what's the speed. So in this example, I look at the flow meter that I have in the farm, and the flow meter says, well, we're running at 760 gallons per minute. So in order to get the 760,000 gallons, I basically divide by 760. And in this case, it will tell me, okay, you need to run the system for 1,000 minutes or about 16 or 17 hours. So you could see how I could use the flow meter to make irrigation decisions and schedule irrigation events. Another good example about using the flow meter, keep in mind, like, let's say my design says my flow rate should be 760 gallons per minute. Now, if I have an issue with this irrigation system and I go look at the flow meter and the flow meter is running at 900 gallons per minute, I know for sure there's something wrong, and definitely that could be a leak. If my design is 760 gallons per minute, a year later, I'm looking at the flow meter, and the flow meter giving me, 600. So less than what the expected design. It means, like, I have problem with the irrigation systems, and most likely I have I have issues with plugging to my emitters. Keep in mind, you have to know how many trees that you have in your orchard. For example, if you have dead trees and you replace them with the newer trees, you're not going to need too much water for these new trees. So you may go with 1 emitter or 2 versus, having 5 or 6 for fully mature trees. So we have to keep that in mind. Now, this is an example of the Thule system. This is in Hanford, just a little bit south of the McMillan GSA area. You could see the Thule system right here. When I install the Thule system, when they install it for me, they charge me about $1,600 a year. They tell me, well, okay, what's the tree spacing, what type of irrigation system, and I have all that information already in their system. Also, they take into account the soil type. So you can see, this is the soil type with the high water holding capacity. And then I don't have to do any calculations because all the information is there. They will calculate my application rate, and they will determine, the actual evapotranspiration on a daily basis for the entire week. And then they will give me a recommendation. They will say, okay, based on what happened last week, you need to run the system for 10.5 hours. So you could see how technology makes life easier for us, and we don't have to worry about doing all the calculations. There are many technologies available, and this is another form where, with aerial images, this is a field that is about 70 acres. This is also in Hanford that we've done some work on a few years back. You could see the red and the yellow trees that they're really stressed. So you could see here in April, you know, the trees, a lot of trees are stressed on this part of the orchard. The minute I see this image, I say, well, I'm not applying enough water. So I increase the amount of water I'm applying, and you come back here, you know, about 2-3 weeks later, you could see I have lots of green and blue, which means that trees are not stressed. You know, another 2 weeks later, I have the same condition. So you could see how I could use technology. I have to pay for this technology, but it will make life much easier for me. And in this example, you know, we used variable rate irrigation instead of having one irrigation zone for my entire 70-acre orchard. We divided into smaller zones, so it will give me the ability to irrigate each zone based on the actual conditions that I have in the field. And this is the Thule system right here. These are the controllers for each zone. You could see this is an infrared LDVI image. Will give me, you know, the greener areas, means that I have larger trees. The red areas, I have smaller trees. And this is where I took, you know, we took the field, split it in half, so we can see the impact of using technology on this part of the field that we're struggling with. And this is my alarm to finish in about 5 minutes. So in this case, you could see we have like 36 different management zones. The management zones, they're basically on something related to the tree size and NDVI. And with these zones, you can see the red zones are the stressed zones. And when I make irrigation decisions, I apply a little bit more to the stressed zones versus, you know, the zones where I have good canopy coverage. You could see with this one, I could save water because instead of applying 1.7 to the entire orchard, you know, I'm applying different amount to different zones. You could see now the difference between 2018 and 2019. Keep in mind the red zones and the yellow zones are the stressed zones. The green and the blue are the good zones. So you could see how I can transform the orchard with variable rate irrigation technology. I'm not going to talk about too much about technology, but you know, you heard a lot about artificial intelligence. We are in the process of using artificial intelligence to make irrigation decisions. It's very important to know what's your distribution uniformity or the efficiency of your irrigation system. This is an example, the example we just used. You know, if I have 95% irrigation efficiency, I only need to apply 1.26 inches. If my irrigation efficiency is 75%, look, I have to go from 1.26 to 1.6, which basically I'm applying 25% more water, and I'm losing 25% more money because I have to pressurize that water. With that, you know, I'm just gonna conclude by saying, you know, keep in mind, need to know what type of soil you're dealing with. You need to know the irrigation water quality, the type of irrigation system that you have in mind, that you have at your farm or you're planning to replace if you're looking at, you know, drip irrigation or another efficient irrigation system. Keep in mind the energy cost and irrigation efficiency, crop water requirements and irrigation scheduling. There are so many tools available in the market. And I'm going to share with you a few more resources that are available for you. We have a nitrogen irrigation initiative that is basically the San Joaquin Valley, covers the counties in the San Joaquin Valley, including Fresno, and also the Central Coast. And as part of this program, we have a whole bunch of advisors in your area. Right here, we have Make a Lumber Orchard System advisor. And we have a whole bunch of research associates that will help us to do evaluation, for your irrigation systems, if you're interested, or if you need help with nitrogen management. And as part of this initiative, we've been holding lots of workshops. I mentioned earlier Crop Manage. Crop Manage is designed by Michael Kahn, farm advisor in Salinas area. And we have a lot of crops right now in Crop Manage. We're planning to have a Crop Manage workshop at Kearney in November of 2024. With this, I want to again thank the Grower Irrigation Academy, Fresno State, and Macmillan GSA. And, just this is the resources available. Make a Lumber, you have this presentation recorded, so you'll have the information available to you. And I'm going to open it up for questions. And, again, we want to thank Fresno State and Macmillan area GSA. I'll stop here and open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Khaled, for that extremely thorough and helpful presentation. I feel like you have a way of presenting information that could be complicated in a digestible way. So thank you.
Thank you.
We now would love to open up for questions. So we'll take a minute for you to soak in all that great information and type any questions you may have for Dr. Bali in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And feel free, MAGSA and CIT team, if you have any questions, you can pipe in as well.
This is Crystal from MAGSA. When you talked about variable irrigation, I mean, and maybe you explained it, I didn't quite get it. How do you do that in a field? You have like you add more emitters, you take away emitters. I mean, how's it work?
Well, there are several ways that you can look at it, but the simplest and easiest way is to keep the existing design that you have. But instead of having one zone, you split into multiple zones based on the soil type. So you can keep everything the same, but instead of having one large zone, you could split into, like, let's say 4 zones based on the soil texture that you have. So with that, if you have an area where you have sandy soil, lighter soil, you could do more frequent irrigations. You could apply a little bit more compared to the other areas where you have really, like, let's say loamy soil, where you don't have to apply that much. But if you have one zone and you have lighter soils in parts of your field, you're going to end up over irrigating to compensate for the lighter soil.
Thank you.
And I see Charles, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I also had a question about VRI. I've done VRI with pivots, and one of the issues that we had was the durability of the valves. I'm curious what types of valves we're using, and do you have any comments on their durability?
Yeah, I think we started this project with the NatFM, and the valves that we have were really good. But I think that's something that you have to consider. If you looking at variable rate irrigation, typically you're going to add maybe 20 to 30% more to the cost of the irrigation system. And then, we've done it at the research scale because, we had so many zones, so we can, control things. But in reality, maybe you just need to have, for that field, maybe you just need to have 3 different zones. So the lighter areas would be in one zone, and you can manage differently than the other 2 zones.
Do you remember the nominal diameter of the valves you were using?
About 1 inch, because we were just like 1 acre zone, relatively small.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see Linda Carter, you have your hand raised, and so I'm going to allow you to unmute yourself if you'd like to share your question now.
Yeah, my question was about PG&E. We're on timers with the pump. I have the telemetry and I have the drip, I have the meter, but we're timer. I actually have another question too. It's all tied into PG&E. So how does that work? You know, that's our costs. I mean, if we
Yeah,
have to
so-
do, we have to have PG&E, we have to run our pumps more.
Yes, and actually, this is a good point that you mentioned that I didn't mention in this presentation. So your high energy cost is from what time? From 4 to 9 or?
Well, that's my other question. See,
Yeah.
my husband died last year, and now my places are all leased. I have a
Yes.
40 that is
Yeah.
leased. One of the places was on the meter. The other one is with the Kings
Yeah.
River. That's
So-
mill.
Yeah, so with the timers, so you have to avoid irrigating between 4 and 9 or whatever, you know, the high energy cost. And, you know, limiting the irrigation to the time where, you know, the energy cost is lower.
Okay.
Also, you may want to consider, you know, with the sweep right now, because of the state budget, we don't have sweep except like, you know, for certain areas. We don't have this sweep program going, but, you know, hopefully, you know, in a year or two, the sweep will come back. And this is where you can upgrade the irrigation system and
Yes.
get solar energy to help with the energy. Now, keep in mind, in the traditional design for irrigation systems, we take the 24-hour day and we say, okay, we need 5 or 6 hours for maintenance, and then they design the irrigation system to run for a maximum of 18 hours a day when you have the maximum crop water use. Now, when we consider energy, that 18-hour window will shrink down to maybe 14, 13, depending on, you know, the energy cost. And then the system design has to be completely different, you know, because you want to make sure that you're irrigating when the energy cost is low.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they've got it on a timer right now for that, for the energy costs, you know, being low. But I'm going to have a different pump because I was irrigating 120 acres. I'm down to 40. The horsepower on the pump is like a 75 horse, and it needs to be a 25 or a 30. So that's something I have to consider.
Yeah, yes, and the variable frequency drive, that will help, you know, if your demand is high or low, that will help a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from an anonymous attendee. When watering an almond orchard multiple times a week compared to just once a week, have you seen a change in hole rot?
I think it's, I am not, you know, I don't know much about crops, so this is a good question for orchard system advisors like Mecca Lumber in our area or Phoebe Gordon. But I know we had a workshop in Bakersfield back in February, and I know doing multiple irrigation a week will help when it comes to disease problems with the trees. I know we've been to a field that has you know, disease issues because of over irrigation, and when you split that irrigation over multiple times, that will help a lot. And this is also a good example for having a soil moisture sensor. The soil moisture sensor will give you an idea if the ground is too wet.
Thank you. And there was a question earlier about whether or not we would share the advisor information. And I just want to remind everyone that we will send out all of these slides with the phone numbers and email addresses of everybody that Dr. Bali has mentioned. But of course, feel free to always email us at the email you see on the screen, info@mcmullenarea.org, and we will send you directly any of the contact info that you're looking for.
I just wanted to point out that the URL for Fresno State is in the chat window. It's jcast.fresnostate.edu/CIT.
Thank you, Charles.
One other question. Now, is it okay to share this information with the person that's leasing my places? Or this place that has telemetry on it? My other place doesn't. But now, is this okay to share this with him since he's paying the PG&E bills?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This is public information, and please share it with anyone who could
Okay.
utilize
Oh.
it.
Okay, all right. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be sure, Linda, to make it easy to share the links to the recording and the presentation slides. So keep an eye out for an email that will come to your inbox, and you can forward it or text the links to anyone you would like. We definitely want to spread the word about all of these helpful resources.
This is Matt Hurley again. If there's not any additional questions, I wanted to put a commercial in and remind everyone what Khaled said about needing a critical part of any system is the meter, and that we do have going in McMullen right now our meter rebate program, meter telemetry rebate program, and that will be a tremendous tool that would be the initial numbers that you will need to work all of these formulas to get that meter installed as quickly as possible so that we can begin to have that data transmitted into these algorithms that are so necessary for irrigation scheduling.
Yes, and if you have any questions about this rebate program, how to access financial assistance through grant funding MAGSA has secured for meters and telemetry, you can go to our website at mcmullenarea.org/rebate, and all of that information is on that page. All right, we have one more minute, so unless somebody jumps in with a question, I would just like to thank again the team at Fresno State Center for Irrigation Technology, the MAGSA team, and Dr. Bali, or he didn't want me to call him doctor, I apologize. Khaled, thank you so much for your time, sharing your expertise with our growers. And as a reminder, this Grower Irrigation Academy will be sharing resources with MAGSA growers over the next about 2.5 years. And so stay tuned for more webinars, workshops, and field days like this one. With that said, thank you all and have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you all.